A little girl drew her safest place and made her teacher cry right there in class. But the twist on the back of the drawing left everyone stunned. Friday afternoon, Class 5B drifted between the hum of the ceiling fan and the scent of crayons. Claire, a new art teacher at Roosevelt, gave what seemed like a simple assignment. Draw the place where you feel the safest. The kids buzzed with ideas. Some sketched princess-canopied bedrooms, others drew soccer fields or a mother's embrace. Ellie Rivera, short brown hair, scuffed backpack, sat quietly. Ellie always stayed just outside the noise like a low note hidden in a melody. She held her pencil for a long time before making the first mark. Claire made her way around the room. When she reached Ellie's desk, she stopped. Ellie's page had no bed, no windows, no sky. Just a cramped, shadowy corner chairs stacked in a pile, a coat draped like a tent roof, a faint green exit light spilling across tile. Under that tent were two tiny curled-up figures. In the top corner, Ellie had shaded in the number 12 on a blue sign. At the paper's edge in tiny letters, she had written, "Peaceful." Claire felt her chest tighten. She recognized that sign, room 12, her own temporary workspace when she stayed late to prep lessons. And the dark corner with stacked chairs looked exactly like the supply closet next to her classroom. Claire asked softly, "Where is this?" The girl looked up. Her brown eyes were as still as a lake after rain. "Where we sleep. Me and Leo, my little brother. But please don't tell anyone." A cold shiver climbed Claire's spine. She forced her breathing steady, afraid one deep breath might spill her tears. She knelt to meet Ellie's gaze. "Thank you for trusting me. Can you tell me more?" Ellie glanced around, then bent over her paper again, filling in careful hatch marks as if each line was a secret being locked away. "Mom works night shifts. Lately. We don't have a home anymore. We ran out of money for the motel. Leo cries a lot. Here it's warm and quiet. The security guard is nice. He doesn't make us leave." Claire had to turn her face away for a moment. Warm and quiet, the words pierced like a needle. She had taught long enough to know about children without housing, about homes blown away like scraps of paper. But she had never heard a child call a supply closet the safest place. When the dismissal bell rang, the kids streamed out like a flock of birds. Ellie packed slowly, hugging her drawing to her chest, then stood before Claire in silence. Claire gave her a warm smile, but inside was a storm. What's the right thing to do for this child, right? Without making her afraid. That night, Claire returned to the school under the pretense of having forgotten her lesson plans. The long hallway smelled faintly of floor cleaner. A green exit light spilled its glow just like the patch of light Ellie had drawn. There was a faint rattle outside room 12. The supply closet door sat ajar like a secret breathing softly. Claire stepped quietly toward it. Through the gap, she saw a coat draped over two small bodies, exactly like in the drawing. A tiny hand, surely Leo's, peeked out from under the coat, clutching a stuffed tiger. Beside him sat a half-finished carton of milk. Claire brought a hand to her mouth. Everything in her wanted to cry. But she didn't. She pulled out her phone and texted Mr. Hawkins, the night security guard. "Where are you?" Less than a minute later, he appeared at the far end of the hallway, tall, lean, salt and pepper beard. He nodded softly and motioned for her to move slowly. When he saw the two children, his eyes gentled. "I know," he whispered. "It's been a week. She asked me not to tell anyone. She's afraid they'll separate her from her brother." "You let them stay here. You think I should send them out onto the street?" he said with a sad smile. "I've been keeping an eye on them. Set up a little heater, brought an extra blanket. I figured you already knew." The tight knot in Claire's chest eased. Hawkins wasn't indifferent. He had chosen to stand guard over two children's sleep. "Tomorrow," Claire said, "we'll follow the right steps, contact the principal, the counselor, social services. But tonight, let them rest." Hawkins nodded. "Every night I'm at the security desk, eyes on the hallway cameras. They're safe." Claire sat down beside the door in silence. Inside, Ellie shifted, letting out a sigh that sounded like water draining from a heavy heart. Claire thought of the posters about safety and justice lining the hallways. Here, justice began with a coat draped over two sleeping children. News has a way of traveling faster than Claire could stop it. On Monday morning, Ellie came in late, dark circles under her eyes. Her classmates clustered around some curious, some clucking their tongues. Claire stepped in front of Ellie's desk. Today we're starting a new project, Kindness Week. Who can tell me about a small, kind thing you've done or someone has done for you? The room went still. A timid hand went up. I left a sandwich in a locker for someone who forgot their lunch. Another voice. I brought an old coat and left it in the hallway so anyone who's cold can take it. And another. I say good morning to the security guard every day. Eyes shifted away from Ellie. The whispers stopped. Only small stories remained like tiny bricks paving a warm road. Mid-morning, the school counselor, Mrs. Patel, stopped by smiling as she asked Ellie to come with her. Claire noticed Ellie's hand clutching the hem of her shirt, but the girl stood up and glanced at Claire. In that glance was a fragile kind of trust, and Claire knew she had to hold on to it no matter what. At lunchtime, Claire handed out sheets of colored paper to the class and wrote in chalk on the board, "Project name a room called home. We're going to transform Room 12 not as a storage closet anymore, but as a place anyone can come to if they need somewhere safe to rest. Fresh blankets, warm light, books to read, and a mailbox where you can share what you need." The kids lit up as if they'd just been given the best game ever. Ben, the class troublemaker, shot his hand up. "Miss, can we get permission from the principal to be allowed to do something nice?" The whole class burst into laughter. Claire knew this project would walk a fine line. She'd have to get approvals, make phone calls, write emails, the kind of things that usually slow people down. But when Ben said, "Be allowed to do something nice," Claire felt a hope rise in her like sunlight. She pictured the small room with warm yellow light, a few soft pillows, a shelf of books, a place where kids like Ellie could breathe evenly. That afternoon, she met with the principal. He listened closely, nodding with each point. "You know," he said in a gravelly voice, "I grew up in a mobile home. I know what it's like to go to sleep not knowing where you'll wake up. We'll do this properly, and thank you for starting it." 2 days later, Ellie handed Claire another drawing. This time, Room 12 glowed with light. Paper stars dotted the walls. On the table sat a milk carton and a few packs of crackers. 2 children still lay curled under the tent, but now next to it, Ellie had drawn a security desk in the hallway. At that desk sat a man in a cap, salt and pepper beard, holding a coffee cup, eyes fixed toward the little room. Beneath the picture, Ellie had written guardian. Claire's throat tightened. Ellie, who's guardian? Ellie smiled. "Mr. Hawkins. He doesn't say much, but every night he's right there. I drew him so that if one day we're not here anymore, he'll still be there, keeping watch for other kids." Claire hugged Ellie gently. "You know, sometimes kindness is just sitting in one place for a very long time so someone else can sleep in peace." The project began with an old bookshelf and a few strings of lights. But news has its own way of spreading. One parent posted in the group chat, "I heard there's a strange man hanging around outside the school every night. Someone should call the police." Attached was a blurry photo, a man sitting in an old car by the fence cap pulled low, jacket frayed at the elbows. The message spread like fire in dry grass. Words like "be careful," "dangerous," "who's responsible" piled up. Claire's phone buzzed nonstop. She clenched her hand. I'm not letting a shadowy silhouette turn into a monster in everyone's eyes. That night, when Claire brought blankets to Room 12, she saw the same old car parked by the gate. Mr. Hawkins stood on the steps, brow furrowed. "He's been sitting there for days now. What does he do? Nothing. Just looks this way." Claire picked up her flashlight and started forward. Hawkins raised a hand. "Let me." "No," Claire said, gentle but firm. "Tonight I'll ask." She tapped lightly on the car window. The man startled. Under the cap, a gaunt face emerged, fatigue clinging to his skin like a film of dust. "Why are you here?" Claire asked evenly. He hesitated, glancing toward the fence where the hallway lights glowed faint green. "I just wanted to make sure they're okay." "Who?" He swallowed hard, eyes reddening. "Ellie and Leo." Claire felt her heart skip. The man leaned forward, words spilling out on a breath tinged with smoke. "I'm Miguel Rivera, their father. I left for a while. I messed up. I was awful. I didn't think I deserved to step inside, but every night I sit here. If something happened, I'd do something. Please don't call the police. I don't want to scare Ellie." The next morning, an emergency parent meeting was held in the library. Folding chairs filled the room, a low hum of whispers in the air. On the table lay a printed copy of the blurry photo stranger at the school gate. Before the principal could speak, The doors swung open. Ellie stood in the doorway clutching the hem of Claire's blouse. Beside her was the man from the photo, Miguel, head bowed, cap in hand. Mr. Hawkins stood quietly behind them. The room seemed to freeze for a beat. Claire placed a hand on Ellie's shoulder. Ellie has something she wants to say. The space went silent. Ellie looked up, her voice trembling, but clear. That's not a stranger. That's my dad. He sits there every night. He looks at the place we sleep but doesn't come in because he thinks he doesn't deserve to. But I drew him. I wrote Guardian. Because really, he watches over us just like Mr. Hawkins. Miguel lifted his head. The man from the photo was no longer a shadow. He was a thin, weary father with wet eyes. He took a deep breath, voice rough. I used to work construction. Then I drank, lost my job. I scared my family. I left because I was ashamed. When I heard they'd been kicked out of their home, I sobered up and found them. I didn't dare knock on the school door. But every night I sat here, leaving only after their light went out. A quiet, "Oh my God," came from one parent. Another bowed their head. Walls built from fear began to crack. The principal looked around the room, then nodded slowly. We were too quick to label something dangerous just because we didn't understand it. He turned to Claire, to Ellie, to Miguel. Today we choose a different label. Opportunity. Room 12 transformed in a week like a fairy tale written by human hands. Parents brought new blankets, pillows, lamps, and bookshelves. Ben, the class troublemaker, suggested a wish box where anyone could write down something they needed. A mother who had once been homeless quietly slipped in a stack of breakfast vouchers. Mr. Hawkins hung up a new wooden sign he'd made himself the nest. Ellie and Leo no longer slept at the school. Counselor Patel helped their mother get into a shelter, then into a rental through a housing assistance program. Miguel joined an alcohol recovery group and signed up for family counseling. Things weren't instantly perfect, but for the first time in months, Ellie slept in a room with a real window, not under the green glow of an exit sign. On the night the nest officially opened, the kids came with their parents. Claire stood watching tired faces from long workdays brighten into smiles. Ellie tugged her hand. "Miss, we made this for you." On the wall hung a large class-made collage, a lighthouse in the middle of a dark sea. In the lighthouse window was the silhouette of a small teacher holding a lantern. Beneath it, Ellie had written, "Thank you for turning on the light without sounding the alarm." Claire laughed, then cried. She understood what Ellie was thanking her for that first night she had chosen to sit by the door instead of calling someone to pull it open. Sometimes kindness is giving someone the chance to finish telling their story. A month later, Roosevelt School held an art exhibition. Ellie's Peaceful hung in the center, flanked by Guardian and Lighthouse. People lingered longer in front of those pieces, not for perfect technique, but because they told stories about rooms where people protect one another. A woman in a business coat stood a long time before Peaceful, then said to Claire, "My name is Mariah. 15 years ago, I slept in my school's supply closet. No one ever found out. I wish there'd been a nest back then." She slipped an envelope into the donation box, a seed for the first sponsorship. Ben, the mischievous one, took the stage for a short speech, his voice playful. "Miss Claire says kindness isn't just paint you smear on to make things look nice. It's how you keep the light on so someone can find their way home. I think kindness is also looking a little longer before you judge." The whole hall laughed, then applauded. By the door, Mr. Hawkins stood with his coffee cup in hand, wearing a quiet, warm smile. On the night after the exhibition, Claire stayed late to take down the displays. She lifted Peaceful from the wall to wrap it carefully. When she turned the paper over, she found another drawing on the back one Ellie hadn't put on display. It was simple. A teacher's desk in the art room with a pale blue folder and an unfinished email on the screen. Its subject line reading, "Test results, Claire Nguyen." Beside the desk lay a handwritten note. "Are you okay?" In the corner of the room stood a brown-haired girl, clearly Ellie, placing a small paper crane on the desk. Beneath the drawing, in thin, careful letters, Ellie had written, "I keep watch for you too." Claire froze. The test results, that was the week she'd sat trembling in front of her screen, afraid of bad news about her health, a fear she had told no one. In those classes, maybe she hadn't hidden her distant eyes as well as she thought. She remembered coming back one day to find a paper crane and a small note on her desk. "Are you okay?" No name. She had tucked it into her wallet. The twist was that Ellie wasn't the only one being kept watch over. Ellie had been quietly keeping watch over her too, child style, by leaving a paper crane and drawing a picture no one else would see. Claire understood why Ellie had put it on the back. In the deepest place of what's safe there is the space where two people keep watch for each other. Winter passed and the nest kept running strong. Some kids came in just to lie down and read for 10 minutes between classes after crying themselves tired. A parent slipped a note into the wish box. "I need someone to watch my child Tuesday night." By that same evening, 3 notes had appeared in response. "I'm free." Miguel had been sober for 6 months. He'd joined the school's maintenance crew working under Mr. Hawkins' patient guidance. One day, standing in the hallway, he looked at the green exit light and said to Claire, "I used to think that light was for running away. Now I think it's to guide the lost." Ellie kept drawing. She sketched small circles, one hand holding another, then another hand holding that one. The circles had no labels, just an arrow with the caption, "Continue." The story the little girl's drawing that made her teacher cry once made the rounds online as a curiosity. But at Roosevelt, it didn't end with tears. It became the way we lived with one another, slowing down enough to ask, listening longer before we conclude, and doing small things over and over until a storage closet turns into a nest. If you're reading this, you might be thinking, what could I possibly do? Maybe it's a quiet check-in text to a coworker. Maybe it's slipping an extra milk carton into someone's lunch bag. Maybe it's choosing not to snap a photo and speculate about a stranger by the gate, but instead walking over to ask. Maybe it's keeping the light on so someone can sleep in peace, even if it's only for one night. We think we're saving someone from the dark, only to realize they've been holding a light of their own, standing on the other side, keeping watch over us with a paper crane, a glance, or a drawing on the back of the page.